Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, and also a best-selling author. And every single day, I help others unlock potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on the show, we have another amazing guest. He is somebody that's part of this community, this network of amazing people that I'm part of. And every single time I'm there, he just stands up because he adds so much value. He's always there helping people improve. And he's just so full of great business advice and nuggets of little gold that you can actually get from him. So I'm absolutely amazed to have him here on the show. He helps businesses become stronger, better, and financially bulletproof. He loves to choose to make every single day the best day ever and every single day after that as well. So please welcome founder of Business Impact, author, and speaker, Mr. Wes Kowalchuk.
Right on. Thank you so much, Fong. I'm excited to be here and thank you for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being here and spending some time with us. You're an amazing person when it comes to business strategies and helping people grow. But tell us how you grew to become that.
That's an fascinating question. So I'd like to, maybe I shouldn't say I'm a serial entrepreneur, but maybe I am. I came to be where I am through a lot of failure. I had some success. I grew. My fourth business was an oil and gas business, and I grew that from nothing to millions of dollars in revenue, and then lost it all. And so some of the lessons that I learned, it was about $700,000 in revenue with my oil and gas business. And one of my mentors, a good friend of mine, I phoned him, and I was, for lack of a better word, I was whining why I didn't have enough customers, why I didn't have enough money, why I didn't have enough whatever. And he goes, well, what's your marketing plan look like? And I go, well, it's over there on the wall, but I just haven't had the money or the time to make it work. And he goes, well, figure out your marketing plan and it'll come together for you. So I said, okay. Wasn't 2 weeks later, I heard an ad on the radio. First time and only time I've ever heard this ad came on was, how would you like to double your revenue in the next 12 months? I put my hand up in the truck. Before I even got out of the truck, I had the coach engaged and they sold me on a coaching program. Short story, 4 months later, and I spent about $45,000 on this program. I fired the coach because I just didn't see the value that we were getting out of it. Didn't have the money, didn't have the cash flow. I borrowed all that money to invest in the coaching. But little did I know that the work that we put into that 4 months would allow us to not only double our revenue that year, but double it again the year after. And so that kind of set us on the track of growth and understanding what we needed to do in creating business processes, what we need to do to create a good, solid message that resonated with our clients, and identify what the problem is that our clients have that only us could solve, right? Fast forward to 2015 when the crash in the oil prices came, we were way overextended and been there, done that. And 2 days before Christmas, my wife and I filed for personal bankruptcy because we were way out of our league, right? That left a very dark period in my life because not only am I a failure as a businessman now, right? I ran that business for 10 years. We made millions, lost it all. Telling my son 2 days before Christmas, we have to move out of the house we're in. And thank God my sister-in-law was around. She allowed us to move in with her into her 3-bedroom condo. So there's 2 families living in a 3-bedroom condo in Calgary. And humbling experience, dark period. Like there was times where I wanted to put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger. And to the point where I couldn't go near my gun safe for a year because I just didn't trust myself, right? My wife kept me out of my head though, kept me out of that space. But the funny thing is I tried everything I could to find a job. I applied for the CEO or president position at the Alberta Energy Regulators all the way down to driving a truck. And it didn't matter what I did, I couldn't find work until, throwing resumes out there. I threw a resume to a coaching firm and not knowing what I'd get out of it. And they're actually the only ones that ever replied back. And so I went for an interview, stepped into their office. First day there, they've got a plaque on the wall, 14 points of culture. And I was amazed that 10 of those points of culture were my own. And I went, maybe this is something here. within a week, I knew this is where I needed to be for the rest of my life. It was a little unfortunate that firm that I worked for wasn't able to stay together. They broke up after about a year, but I knew coaching was in my blood after that. So it didn't take very long for me to figure out, what do I need to do to get into this space? And I started doing a lot of research and digging up and training and all kinds of stuff. And that puts us where we are today is, for the last almost 3 years now, I've been running my own firm, which helps business owners that are essentially in the service space. And I target my marketing the service space, but it's funny. I only have one client right now that's in the service space. Everyone else is in I shouldn't say that, in the trades. Everyone else is in the service space, a gym, a couple of training companies, and that kind of stuff. Right. So it's kind of funny how that all comes around, but that's how I got into it. And it wasn't by choice. I call it divine guidance, because it didn't matter what I did, nothing was working until a door opened for me, and it was where I needed to be. Last night we had a syndicate style networking meeting, and one of the last questions were, how long have you been doing this, and how long are you going to do it? My answer was, I've been doing this for about 6 years, and I'll finish doing it when I'm about 3 years after I'm buried.
That's the magic of taking yourself out of the business and having the business still run, right?
Absolutely right.
Has to be self-sufficient. So you're one of those people who got into coaching, believed in coaching, and all of a sudden the coaching didn't work. You let that go. So then now you're one of those coaches. So what would you say was different between that mindset when you were being coached at the time and you didn't find it working? What was missing?
Yeah. So really the thing I think that was missing is, we were dumping, I think it was about $2,500 American into a phone call once a week. Mm-hmm. And we just didn't see the value in this accountability call, because really that's all it was an accountability call. Hey, did you do the work? Did you do what you said you were going to do? Now there's value in that, but my big ego wouldn't say, I don't need that. I can just do this myself. Knowing what I know now, one of the things that I try to help my clients with every time I sit down with them is bring more value to them so that they're getting that value. I learned that lesson in a very powerful way. Coaching isn't so much about business mechanics as it is about mindset. Right. And so a lot of times we need to take that moment and just ask, hey, how are you today? Right. Because mindset will really help deliver your promises if you're in the right mindset. Mm-hmm. Right. If you're in a positive mindset, I've been reading positive books since, I don't know when, first time I quit drinking, I think. So that goes back about, I'm going to say 25 years or so. And, with the right mindset, you can accomplish anything. With a bad mindset, you're just putting yourself into a spiral and you're going to kill yourself. If you've got that right mindset and you've got the right guidance and the right tools, you're unstoppable, right? You're like the 300 in the picture behind you. You become the 300 that can hold off the entire Persian army for months. Yeah, because you're in that right space, right?
Mm-hmm. When you're during that time that was dark and it was very down in your life, what did you do? Like, how did you overcome that thought process of, you know what, this is what it is, I just have to accept it, to I'm going to get out of this?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. One of the biggest challenges I had was trying to stay positive, like trying to be there. Now, my wife was really good at talking me out of my head, but at the same time, I also knew I needed to be reading better books. So I dove big time because I didn't have a job. I had, 10, 12 hours a day to do nothing. So I would dive into reading books. I read Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. I read Og Mandino's Spellbinder's Gift. I read Todd Herman's Alter Ego. There's just a ton of books that allowed me to figure out my mindset. And one of the best things that happened to me is June of that year, and this is going to sound weird, but June of that year, my daughter tried to commit suicide for the third time. Mm. that's the best thing that happened to me that year, because what happened was is it allowed me to have a conversation with her about getting her into a long-term drug treatment. I put her into that long-term drug treatment at the age of 20. And the way that drug treatment works, it's in Calgary. It's called the Adolescent Addiction Recovery Center, or ARC. Amazing facility. I put her in there, trying to do everything I could to save her life, not knowing that at the time I did that, it would save my life as well. Right. Wow. So I've been a long-term alcoholic and addict. My daughter and I are 1 week apart in our sobriety dates. And that set me on a path of self-discovery and self-growth like I've never been on before. Like I said earlier, I've been reading positive books for 25 years, but the last 5.5 years have just been like a skyrocket of how does my brain work? How do I reprogram my brain from this old way of thinking? You know, Joe Dispenza talks about your neural pathways in your mind that are especially go-tos for addicts and alcoholics. They're like 4-lane highways. They're super highways that as soon as something happens, boom, you're on the 401 doing 110 miles an hour. And next thing you know, you're going, oh my God, why did I do that? What Joe Dispenza talks about is taking that highway and breaking it back down, stop using that highway and start creating new neural pathways. Because our brain is so plastic, you can actually repurpose those neurons and put them back into a new neural pathway. So I started down the road of recovery, which started out just like a little grass trail in the woods. And it's now become my 401 highway, right? When stuff goes sideways, I don't go back to using, I go back to, you know, okay, what do I need to do to get through this? What are the tools I need to do to make better decisions? What are the tools I need to manage my emotions better? And that's one of the powerful things, is realizing that, you know, as human beings, we need to be the ones that control our emotions, not emotions controlling us. Because when we let our emotions control us, we make really bad decisions. Yep. and so that's one of the powerful things that I've been going through for the last 5 years. And that's really led me to help out my coaching clients, because I really can understand how the brain works. And when they get stuck in a space, I can relate to that, because I've been there. And I go, this is how you get unstuck. Mm-hmm. This is the kind of stuff you need to do. You know, how many people meditate, right? Not very many.
Right.
And most of them, like me, go, well, I don't even know how to meditate. Where do I begin? And so I started meditating, guided meditation, doing some stuff that Joe Dispenza recommended, but it doesn't just end there. But the idea is daily habits, daily thoughts. Your thoughts in your mind are like flowers and vegetables growing in your garden. Mm-hmm. If you let the bad thoughts come in like weeds and you don't pull them out right away and toss them, those bad thoughts overtake your garden. And you, next thing you know, you have a weed patch for a garden instead of a garden. And so we have to be very cognizant, and awareness is the big thing. Being aware of what your behavior is, being aware that you've got a bad thing going on. As soon as you're aware of it, you can start to look at ways to fix it. You can start to pull those weeds out and get rid of those bad thoughts. And then you can start to see your life change, right? And it's just like a harvest. You got to plant the seeds first and then wait for harvest to come. You're not like a farmer where you plant in the spring and then next weekend you go harvest. It doesn't work like that. You know, you got to wait 110 days before you can get into the harvest mode, right? So it's the same thing. Mindset is huge. Business mechanics, there's a little bit of knowledge that you need to have around finding that predictable process that works. And I've got one of those. I'd love to say I created it. But I've actually just copied it from all the gurus, all the experts, and we've narrowed it down into 6 pillars that allow a business owner to figure out what they need to be doing in their business. And I don't know how many business owners I've talked to in the last year, maybe 500 or so. The vast majority don't know where they're at financially in their business. They guess. And so one of the biggest pillars that we start with in my coaching programs is we start around financial mastery, understanding how do you read your P&L statement? How do you make that work, right? And then how do you monetize it, right? Most people don't understand that, you know, hey, this is my gross profit margin and that's the best it's going to get. Well, there's certain things that you can do to change that. But if you don't know where you're at on the scale of where everyone else in your industry is, you don't know what your financial potential is in your business.
Right.
So let me give you an example. Most trade companies, they'll typically have between 30 to 35% gross profit margin, right? And I know from experience that if they're not getting 50% gross profit margin on all their projects, they're not paying themselves.
No.
Right? Because I've had enough clients go through that process and, man, why are you stealing from your family to pay your business? Get your profit margin up to 50% so you can pay yourself and feed your family, right? And so when you're looking at, let's take an electrician, for example. The average electrician's profit margin is probably 45%. That means 50% of the companies that are operating are below that. Which means they're not making enough money. They're stealing from their family. Right. And then there's 50% that are above that. The 50% that are above that are the companies you want to kind of emulate, because they're the ones that are doing more things right. Right. And that's essentially what I help my clients figure out is, what aren't you doing right? What don't you know in business? And a lot of that comes from my own pain, right? I'm bald for a reason. It's not natural. I had to wear this off, banging my head on a wall, frustrated as all get out. Like, that's the only reason why I even bothered to hire a coach in the first place, is because I was so frustrated with hiring staff. I was frustrated that I wasn't making enough money. My cash flow looked like a really bad heart rate monitor. It looked like my business was going to have a heart attack. And when you're that frustrated, you're open. Your ego is ready to become humbled. And when your ego becomes humbled, you're willing to accept advice. And that's when you can really start to make a change. Right. That's what happened for me in a big way.
I'm going to circle back to a few things that you said there. You mentioned about creating those habits so that you can have that positive mindset for a continual period of time. Now, lots of people will sit there and go, well, yeah, it's easier said than done. I want to change my habits too. But you know what? That piece of cake looks very, very good. And I'm on my diet for 5 days. I think I should take that cake. Or, oh, that new show sounds very good. I'm going to jump onto that. I'll put this aside. I'll get back on it. Did you have any mind hacks that kind of you forced or tricked your mind into going, you know what? I'm gonna be really consistent on these things so that eventually it became that habit.
Right. So there is some. I use affirmations, and people go, well, that's just woo-woo stuff, right? Well, if you're really serious about it and you dig into it. So when I first started doing affirmations, was about almost 3 years ago. I did a weekend training program with a good friend of mine, Rael Kelly, from Strategic Pathways, and he talked about doing your affirmations coming from a place of power and a place of authority, right? And the funny thing is when you first start telling yourself these affirmations, your brain goes bullshit, because it knows that that's all bullshit. The funny thing is you keep doing it enough times, the repetition, at some point, and you probably won't notice when, but at some point your brain stops saying bullshit and your brain starts to buy into it. Right. And so one of my affirmations, the 8th one, was, I'm ready for the world to hear my story. Right. And that came true for me about 1.5 years after I started saying my affirmations, when I got an opportunity to speak in front of a men's group, in front of 25 men, strangers I didn't know. This was long before COVID. And I got to share my story, not somewhat dissimilar from what we just shared here today, but it was the first time I'd ever done that publicly. First time I talked about my bankruptcy. First time I talked about sticking a gun in my mouth. All those things that most people don't want to talk about because it's painful. Well, that's who I am today. Those things that I've gone through have made me who I am today. Had I not gone through those, I wouldn't be the guy that wants to be able to create world abundance, that wants to give back to the community, that wants to raise the tide for all the boats, right? I wouldn't be that guy today if it wasn't for those things. So when we go back to creating those habits, the mind hack, you just have to have the discipline to stick to it. If you fall off the wheel or you fall off the wagon, whatever you want to call it, you have to get back on, right? Forgive yourself, right? How many guys beat themselves up, right? You do something, oh shit, and then you beat yourself up for the next week because you knew you shouldn't have done that. Well, I was big at that. And I had to get to the point where I had to forgive myself for doing that and say, look, I'm going to be better next time. And then just start from day one. There's a program that came out, I think it was a couple of years ago, maybe not even quite that long. It was called the 75 Hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. You had to work out 45 minutes twice a day. One of them had to be outside, and you had to read a good book. And there was a list of things that you had to do. And if you failed in any of those things, you had to start the 75 days from day one.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you right now, I never finished it. I restarted that program about 15 times. And then I finally gave up on it, just simply because there was too much discipline needed for me to make that. And I just couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But if you can create that discipline in your life, if you can do a 75 hard, you can accomplish anything. Mm-hmm. Because that's the discipline that you need to create to become that high performer. Mm-hmm. Right.
Being in Alberta, you probably have to schedule that 75-day thing within the summertime, because working out outside in the wintertime is not going to be fun.
No, I have a niece of mine that follows that Wim Hof method where you go running in the cold. Uh-huh. Well, she went running last winter in -20 with a tank top on and froze her chest, and it was just nasty.
Wow. You also mentioned that so you kind of let go of coaching for a while because you didn't find the value in that. But then eventually you went, you know what, I do need to hire that coach and have somebody else guide me along and help me along. And then you became a coach afterwards. What was that thought process between you saying, I don't want a coach, to, you know what, I do need a coach? What made you change your mind? And did the experience from before deter you from taking action faster?
Yeah, so I never rehired that coach or never got another coach again. I only hired the coach the one time. But for me to get to that space of hiring that one coach, I knew I was struggling enough in business that I knew there had to be a better way. Mm-hmm. And I knew I didn't know the way. And I'd had enough mentors along the way that, they were good, but they didn't have the vested interest in guiding me the way I needed to be guided. So when that coach came along that said, hey, you want to double your revenue this year, that's exactly what I needed to do, because I knew if I broke that $1 million mark and I got into that higher income level, then my life would change, my business would change, everything would be better. Mm-hmm. And you know what? It did. It got better, right? By the second year, when we doubled our revenue the second time in a row, we'd done almost $2.5 million in revenue. I'd taken my first vacation in 7 years.
Wow.
I was gone for 6 weeks. I only phoned back to the office twice. And that was simply because nobody phoned, and I'm going, everything okay back there? Right? And so we'd created those processes that we need so the business would run without me. Mm-hmm. And the challenge was, because I didn't keep that coach engaged, I often look back at it and go, had I kept that coach engaged to guide me through the rest of the growth of my business, would I have gone bankrupt? Mm-hmm. Right? Would I have ended up in a place where I was over leveraged?
I see.
And I often think, well, obviously that was meant to happen because I'm in the space where I need to be right now, and I'm loving being here. But there's still that thought every once in a while goes, what would have happened had I done that? I know my life would have been different, because I probably wouldn't have gone bankrupt. I probably would have been able to scale my business and ride out the downturn and continue to grow. Mm-hmm. But that's not where I was meant to be. And sometimes as humans, we also need to realize that when, doors sometimes need to close, but when a door closes, another one opens.
Right.
And we need to have the courage and the fortitude to walk through that door and say, okay, what's on the plan here? What do I need to do? And, one of the things that one of my best friends, he described me, he said, one word to describe you would be tenacity. He said, you don't have quit in your vocabulary. And I have to apologize. I'm a little bit emotional right now. When I look back over everything I've been through my alcoholism, through divorce, through destroyed relationships, and all that stuff that went on with all of that, I've never given up. I've always driven forward. There's got to be something better. There's something to drive forward to, right? And even when it's even when it doesn't look good, like the beginning of COVID, for example, I lost one of my biggest clients. And that was a $10,000 hit to my monthly revenue.
Mhm.
And that was a pretty big chunk. And so what do we do, right? So it gave me the opportunity to go find a bunch more clients and really have a bigger impact on where I needed to be. The idea is, if life is beating you down, just keep getting back up, right? It's not how many times you win, it's how many times you get back up,
Mhm.
right? Because life is meant, I believe life is meant to be a challenge to force us to grow, to become better human beings.
Right.
And if we accept that challenge, it doesn't necessarily make it easier, but it gives us that guiding light that, hey, there's a lesson I need to learn here. This challenge is forcing me to be stronger. So let's accept it. When you pray to God, say, God, give me strength. He doesn't give you, Atlas or Arnold Schwarzenegger body overnight.
Yeah.
He goes, here's a membership to the gym, dude. Right.
Yeah.
You ask for more wisdom. He goes, here's more problems for you, dude. Figure it out. Right. You ask for serenity, right? And he throws chaos into your world so that you can learn serenity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, and this is the biggest thing I learned about the serenity prayer, because I brought it up here. Serenity prayer is, understanding the things that you cannot change, accept the things, or understanding the things you can change, accept the things you cannot change, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And all through my life, I've had that on my wall in my mom's house. I grew up with it. My dad was an alcoholic. Most of the members of my family were alcoholics. I became one. Some of my kids became alcoholics. But truly, when you identify what that definition of serenity means, is you can only change you, how you accept the world, how you interact with the world, and you can choose to respond or react to a situation. Mm-hmm. And if you understand that, and you understand that you can't control persons, you can't control places, you can't control things, but you can control how you interact with it, then serenity comes into your life. Mm-hmm. And when you have serenity, you can accept any challenge in the world and you will be able to overcome it.
Awesome. That is powerful stuff.
Yeah, and it's true.
When you talked about challenges and overcoming challenges, and then you also mentioned about the COVID and how that changed businesses and impacted you. What was that shift for you in your business to allow you to kind of navigate through this whole COVID situation?
Wow. That's it's funny, but we spent a lot of money learning some very expensive lessons. And we were looking at doing some outsourcing, a whole bunch of stuff around marketing and stuff. And the vast majority of it didn't work out because we didn't do it right. We weren't managing it properly, but we learned those lessons in the process, right? And when we look at how COVID's affected business, there's three kinds of business owners in this world. There's the ones that are looking, how do I pivot? How do I take advantage of this situation, right? And I often go back to, when I work with my clients, I go, in every downturn, there's even greater opportunity. Joe Kennedy, back in the 20s, he had a net worth of, a couple $1 million. I think it was about 4 million. By the end of the 30s, he had amassed a fortune in the hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Because he was able to take advantage of those downturns. So the first group of business owners, when there's a downturn in the economy, when there's challenges, they're looking for ways to take advantage of it. How do we do this? The other group are the ones that I'm just going to take a wait and see approach, cross their arms and kind of just put a hold on everything. And then the third group are the business owners that have bought into, Chicken Little, the sky is falling, oh my God, COVID's here, we're all going to die, blah, blah, blah. The sad part is, over the last 18 months, those business owners are no longer in business. They've gone bankrupt. They've had to close their businesses down, but that's left a big void, right? That's left a big void of opportunity for business owners to come in and fill that need, because there's a need, right? And so how do we identify what that need is, right? And probably the best way that I've used to identify for us to get through there is the need for business owners to do two things. And we've done a lot of research around this, but most business owners are struggling to get more customers, and or they're struggling to hire more employees,
Mhm.
right? Better employees. Keep and retain employees are the two biggest problems I see with most business owners. And so, we're putting together a program, and I can't really talk about it, but it's geared around solving both of those problems by providing expert advice and consult into those areas for every single business owner at a fraction of the price of what a consultant would cost you.
Mhm.
So we're super excited about that. And that's kind of the space where, if a business owner knows what to do and he's not willing to do it, shame on you. But if he knows what's wrong and he's been given the tools to go and do it and he's willing to do it, let's encourage him to go be a winner,
Mhm.
right? Win. And the more business owners that we can get to win, the better our world's going to be. Like, think about this. I think it's 59% of Canada's economy is based on small business, right? And in some places you read it might go as high as 80%.
Mhm.
But when you think about this, 94% of businesses in Canada are small businesses,
Mhm.
right? 0.6% are large multinational corporations. And then there's a little, gap in the middle that's the medium-sized businesses. Out of that 94% of small businesses, 96% of them never make $1 million in revenue.
Mhm.
Why not? Well, they don't know what they don't know about growing a business successfully.
Right.
They're really good at the tools. They're really good at the skill set. They're really good at their craft, right? One of my clients, I helped him grow 133% right in the middle of COVID in 9 months, right? In 10 years in his business, he'd never broke a $200,000 a year revenue.
Mhm.
And in 9 months, he did 333,000, and he was still growing. And he told me just before Christmas, he said, Wes, he said, I thought all I needed to be good in business was to be really good at my craft. And he said, you've proven me that that's not the case.
Mhm.
He said, I need to know business. I can't just know my craft. I need to know business. And that's the challenge with those 96% of small businesses, is they don't know how to predictably grow a business. And the key word there is predictably.
Right.
How do you generate the predictable leads you need? Right. So that every week, exactly how many leads you're getting coming in the door. So I like to use this rule of 10. If you want to grow your business by one client a month,
Mhm.
that means you need to book 10 meetings somewhere in that month,
Yep.
right? 10%, 10 meetings, you close one. To get those 10 meetings, you have to talk to 100 people,
Yep.
right? So that's the rule of 10. Well, how do you find those 100 people? Well, if you go networking or you base it on referrals, can you guarantee that you're going to get 25 leads a week coming into your business? No, not really.
Right.
I mean, referrals are great. Networking is great because they're warm leads. You can close them 2 times as often, but they're not predictable.
Mhm.
And so how do we get more predictable leads? I get my clients to look at their lead generation as a wagon wheel, right? If you've got 10 or 14 spokes on a wagon wheel, one spoke representing every lead generation activity you have in your business, you can actually start to create some predictability because you get all those spokes on the wheel. Your wheel runs really true.
Mhm.
Most business owners have 2 spokes on their wheel. How well does their wheel go around?
Not very.
Right. And then they wonder why they can't get their business to grow. Right.
Mhm.
And so that's the challenge. So we've created a system to help them figure that out and how to implement that so they can start to get predictable lead generation working.
Mhm.
And when they have that, then we can start to look at getting their back end working so the back end can manage the lead generation. Leads are the fuel for your engine, right? The back end is all about making sure the engine's well oiled and greased so it runs right. And then when you can get to that space, you can buy back your time. You don't need to be the guy running the business. The business runs on its own without you. Now you can turn around and sell it for maximum value. And that's what a business is really all about. Is a business is just a vehicle to provide you the lifestyle you want.
Mhm.
Right? Most people end up in a business after a couple of years that they get stuck. They created a job for themselves and they don't know how to get out of it. And my whole goal at Fong is to help business owners, first of all, understand what they don't know about growing a business, give them the tools that they can grow it. And then if they want to grow it to, be the next Uber, by all means, you want to be Elon Musk, go for it. If you've got the right vehicle, you can make it happen,
Mhm.
right? If you just want to have enough money so you can go on a vacation every other month, you can do that too. You don't have to suffer with a job that you created that pays yourself, and you hate it after a few months or a few weeks or a few years.
Mhm.
You don't have to do that. There's ways to make it work. And it doesn't matter if you come to me for advice, go to you for advice, because I know, Fong, you're in a very similar space. There's all kinds of business coaches out there. Find one that you can relate to, that makes sense, and then go do the work.
Mhm.
Right? And then you can live the life of Riley, right?
Awesome.
But if you're not willing to do the work, you're not willing to listen, go ahead. How's that working for you?
That's true. You got to where you are. What you talked about before about the 6 pillars.
Yeah.
Would you be able to kind of give us a quick little synopsis of those 6 pillars?
Absolutely. Like I said, the first one's financial, understanding how to monetize your P&L, looking at the numbers and knowing what they mean. That was one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my business going bankrupt, is I didn't understand what the numbers. I mean, when I look back after I went bankrupt and I started doing some research on understanding your finances, there was little red flags that were starting to appear back in 2014 that, had I noticed them, we probably could have averted what we did, but weren't bright red flags throwing themselves in my face. So I didn't see them, right? So understanding your finances, that's the first pillar. The second one is understanding how to get marketing to work for you, right? 60% of people that you ask them, is marketing an expense or an investment, 60% will tell you it's an expense. And those 60% need to come talk to me, because they're doing it wrong. For every dollar you spend, you should get a return on your investment, not just keep throwing money at the wall and, praying for the best. So understanding how to make your marketing work. Then the second part to the second pillar is the sales, because they kind of go hand in hand, right? You have the lead generation, and how do you convert them to paying customers? Once you have that piece worked out, it's great. Most people have a sales process. 99% of the time, it's not written down, and they don't track it. So they don't know if it's broken or not. They just know it's not working like it should. When you ask them, what's your close rate? Most of them go, well, it's about 30%, but they're just guessing. They don't really know.
Right.
So there's a lot of pieces to a sales process that it needs to make work. The biggest one is the follow-up, right? 82%, and I'm going to say this again, 82% of salespeople don't follow up after the first call.
Right.
But 85% of sales are made between the 5th and the 12th touch points. So what goes, right? So there's 15% of salespeople out there that are rocking it, and the rest are suffering, right? So that's the second piece. Get that figured out. Then we dive into what I call destination, and that's about, how do we plan our business? Because if you don't plan, right, you're planning to fail by default. And so I talk about helping my clients understand what they want for their personal life. Like, what do you want in your life? Do you want to travel? Where do you want to live? What kind of house? What kind of schools do you want your kids to go to? What kind of legacy do you want to have? Do you want to be a philanthropist? How do you want that to look like? And then we look at your business and we go, how do we make your business pay for that? What do we have to do? And then so we set in, business plans. And when I talk business plans, I'm not talking, the big fat thick documents you take to the bank, because those, once you do them, you put them on a shelf, you never look at them again. I'm talking about living, breathing, actionable documents that are, maybe 4 or 5 pages long at the most, that you look at weekly to say, hey, I'm on track or I'm not on track. And then, you reevaluate. So we go back and go through that process. Once we have the destination figured out, the goal setting, the vision, the mission, then we start looking at, okay, what kind of people do we need to have on board to help us do this? So we look at the HR piece and we go, how do we make this work? We look at your organizational structure, and we start to vision out, what is it going to look like 5 years from now? How many positions are you going to need to grow your business the way you want? And then we start putting roles and procedures in place for all of those people. And at some point we say, here's a KPI. When we hit this revenue, we need to hire this person. And so we have all the pieces in place to start to advertise, set up the interview process, and all that other good stuff, right? The fifth pillar, pardon me, is about creating high performance decision-making teams. And that comes down to building teamwork and culture. Right? So that then, and really in essence, what it does is it provides them accountability and responsibility to make decisions without you. so you don't become the bottleneck in your business anymore. And it gives you that freedom to step away from the business, let them run to the day-to-day stuff, and you can work on your business to grow it as big as you want. Right. And when you can take Friday off and the business doesn't crumble, it still makes money, then you know you're ready to scale your business, right? Because you've got everything working like it should with the leads you have coming in. All you have to do is turn on your lead flow, turn on the tap, flood those leads in there. Now you can scale your business as big as you want because it's all set to do that. Most business owners don't do that. They try to scale their business and they run out of enough leads and it goes, bleh, right? It's like running out of gas on the highway. You all of a sudden you're stranded on the side of the road and they can't figure out why, right? Same reason, right? And then the last pillar is all about Kaizen, and I call it Kaizen because it's all about constant improvement. Go back to your financial and look at it and go, how do we make this better? How do we improve on it? Right? Ask yourself questions like, what worked well this week? What didn't? What do we need to change to make it work better? And then do the same thing for each one of the pillars. Do the same thing for your marketing pillar, for your sales pillar, for your destination pillar, for your HR pillar, and for your teams pillar. And then you just keep doing that. You're constantly improving it. And you will find you have created a business that works without you. And when you have a business that works without you, it's got an exit strategy built into it. You can sell it for 10 or 15x pre-tax profit versus what the standard is in the industry right now, which is about 3 times. Right? So think about this. If you've got $1 million business, right, and the pre-tax profit is $300,000, that means you can sell it for about $900,000, right?
Wow.
But if it's because it runs without you, you can sell it for 10 times that. Now you can sell that business for $3 million.
Wow.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Right? The challenge is, I'm going to say 90% of businesses won't be sold for that kind of, 90% won't even be sold. They just get chopped up for parts because mom and pop have run the business for 30 years. They've never created systems. They've never done any processes. They take them out of the business and there is no business, right? And I have a really good example. A gas station that used to be my mom and dad's hometown. I used to fill up there when I was running my oil and gas business. And it was great. It was right off the highway, like 10 feet, you're filling your truck up. They were trying to sell their business for $600,000. They never did. It was on the market for about 5 years. And they eventually took the pumps out, sold off the inventory. I don't know if they got $100,000 for it, right? But that means that they're $500,000 short of their retirement nest egg.
Wow.
That's a huge, huge problem. And, talking with Sharon Shore from Alberta Business Sales, she said there's 185,000 businesses in the next 5 years in Canada that are going to be wanting to be up for sale because the owners are going to retire. Only about 10% of them will be sold for a profit. The rest will be chopped up for parts. Wow. That means there's like 170,000 businesses out there that need help to get them to a place where they can actually sell it.
Well, the importance of those 6 pillars.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. But most business owners don't know what they don't know. So my game is to help educate them, right? Yeah. So I do webinars once a month. Actually, I've got a webinar coming up December 7th. I'll put some information out to you here as soon as I get the landing page done for it. But it's all about learning what it is you don't know to grow a business, right? Because like I said earlier, we're all good at the tools, we're all good at the craft, but we don't know how to grow a business. When I started my oil and gas business, I can do that better than you. I looked at the ticket and going, you're making that kind of money? Get out of the way. I'm going to go do this. And I went and bought a truck. I went and bought a trailer and I said, I'm in business. I'm doing this. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. Wow. Not a clue. Right. I started with 50 grand and I spent 150 the first year. So whatever business plan you come up with says, oh, I need this much money, triple it.
You talked about doing webinars and educating and helping people. Another way you do that is you utilize your book as well.
Absolutely. My book I wrote I created it's called The Cash Flow Creator, and in there I cover 8 strategies that a business can apply, an owner can apply to his business today to start generating profit. And it's really simple. It's geared around the 5 areas that make money in your business. Most people don't know that. The 80-20 rule, everybody's familiar with the 80-20 rule. So 20% of what we do creates 80% of the results, right? And I love sharing this with my clients. Take your customer list, identify based on revenue, the top 20% of your customers, and you can add up, they'll do 80% of your revenue, right? So why are you looking for more customers when you should be focusing on helping those 20% become better, right? Or look for more customers like that 20%, right? So the 80-20 rule is real simple. More leads. How do you generate more leads? And we talked about this, creating that consistent lead, predictable lead generation effort, then converting them to more sales, then getting them to come back and buy more often from you, which is really comes down to the customer experience. And I like to use the term, the customer ladder, right? First time they buy from you, I call them a trier. They're trying your stuff. They come back a second time, they're a buyer. If you come back a third time, they're a customer. Fourth time, they're a client. If you can get them to the top rung by using a great customer experience and a CTO, which is a chief thank you officer, you have a raving fan. And when you have a raving fan, you can get rid of your salespeople because now your customers become your salespeople, right? That's getting them to come back more often. And when you have that kind of a customer, you can raise your prices because you're providing such extenuating value. You can charge almost whatever you want. If they know they're getting 4 times the value, they'll easily pay twice the price.
Right.
But most business owners don't know that. Most business owners end up competing on price because they don't have the ability to share the value that they offer their clients. And in the absence of value, price becomes everything.
Right.
And then the last one, of course, is creating more profit, which is all about managing your costs and understanding your finances, really.
Nice stuff. Make sure everybody out there, make sure you pick up that book. If you were given the world stage to speak for 1, 2, 3 minutes so that you could spread one message for everybody to remember you by, what would that message be?
That message, that's a good question. I would love for everyone to realize, become students. If you're in business as a business owner, you need to really learn what it is about growing a business, right? It's not just managing it, but growing it, because you have the ability. And I want to share this. I talk about creating world abundance, and I want to paint this little picture for you. I read a good book by Grant Cardone. It was called The Millionaire Booklet. Hour-long read. He said he wrote it in 2 hours. But what hit me was most powerful in that was he was at a fundraising event, 250 people in there, and he said all he had to do was look around the room. Everybody was tapped out, emotionally, physically, mentally, and financially. He said they were $1 million short in reaching their fundraising goal, and he said there was only one guy in that room, him, of course, that could make up that difference. But what made me sit up and take notice is he asked, why was there only one? Why not 10? Why not 20? Why not 50? And the drug treatment center that I took my daughter to, they have a big gala fundraising event called the Gala, Miracle Gala. Same thing, 250 tables or 250 seats. And I look at that thinking, go, what if we were able to help 20, 50, 100, 2,000, 1 million business owners 10x their revenue over the next 24 months? What would change for them? What would change for their families? What would change for their employees? I mean, obviously they get to hire more employees, but if they created a great culture within their business where employees were engaged and they came to work and they seen that their leadership gives back to the community, it trickles down everywhere. And if that trickle down happened in the business community and in the community where they live, work, and play, someone comes banging on that employee's door at 8 o'clock at night saying, hey, could you donate to this great cause? What are the chances that employee would donate? What would happen in the community, right? It would raise that community up. And that's really what my goal is to create world abundance by creating business success so that business owners give back. So we don't have just 1 or 2 businesses in the community that give back. Because if you look now, you'll see, there's maybe a handful of business owners that give back consistently to the community. But why not 100? Why not 200? Why not 1,000? They give back to the community and just raise everything up. Do you think we could get rid of poverty? Do you think we could get rid of homelessness? Do you think we could get rid of world hunger? In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. But most business owners don't understand how to grow a business predictably.
Well,
so Creating world abundance, my brother.
Good stuff. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you 5 more quick questions, and I'll give you the first thing that comes to mind. Hollywood calls and goes, you know what, Wes, we need to do a biopic on you, but you get to choose who your co-star is going to be. We're going to have you play you, but you could pick somebody to play your best friend. Who would that be? Keanu
Reeves. Hands down, Keanu Reeves.
Awesome. Keanu Reeves comes to your place and goes, you know what? I need to get to know you better before I play this part. So let's get together, but I'm hungry right now. What's that special dish that you can prepare for?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm gonna say lasagna, but it's probably not what I would do.
Awesome. It's probably bought, right?
Steak. I'm a big meat eater, so steak would be on the menu for sure, I would think.
Nice. You go, you know what? The best way to get to know me is to play Monopoly, but you know what? I have a different version of Monopoly. It's called Wesopoly. And in it, there's these little tokens that you use as a playing pieces that represents you. Yeah. So what are the 5 items that represents you the most?
One would be a race car, the top hat. I always think of ZZ Top and Sharp Dressed Man. I grew up with that song, and so being sharp dressed. I used to be in the Army years ago, and I always felt the best when I wore my uniform. Brass buttons, polished boots. Look tall. All that good stuff. So definitely that. A piece of pie. I love pumpkin pie, right? So, and then a rainbow.
Nice.
Because I think we're all striving to find that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And it's not so much the pot of gold that we find, but it's the journey along the way, right? It's our journey that we have to look after. And I don't know what the last one would be, a pencil perhaps, because, life's not written until we do it, right? So write it in pencil and draft it and then go do it.
Awesome. Nicely done. A hidden talent that not many people know about.
Oh yes, I love shooting. I'm a pistol. I used to be a competitive pistol shooter, and I definitely love my pistols. Every once in a while, I'll go to my safe and I'll work the action back and forth just to get the feel for it. It's a passion of mine. Almost as passionate about off-road racing and wheeling. So. Oh
wow, cool stuff. And my last question is, what is success like? Give me a number between 1 to 4.
I'll do 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. So how is success like? The Mona Lisa.
It's a picture in time. And, I look at the Mona Lisa, and it's funny you brought that up. Success is being in the moment and just soaking it in. And so when you stand in front of the Mona Lisa, you have to just be in the moment and soak in what the Mona Lisa represents. And I think success, a lot of times, in my alcoholism and in my recovery, I had an old timer tell me one time, he said, the past is done. The future, we don't know about. And today is the present. You have to be living for today. And if you got 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the present, you're pissing all over today. So stop doing that, right? Live in the moment. And that's what I think success is all about, is living in the moment, being there with your kids, being there with your wife, being there with your loved ones, with your parents, being in the moment. It can change your perception of what success is a big way. Success isn't about the billions of dollars in your bank account. Success is about the people you have around you. Your network is equal to your net worth. So be in the moment. Awesome. Nicely done. That is how success is like the Mona Lisa. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, get a copy of your book, look at your webinars and sign up for courses, what's the best way? Probably email or text message. You can email me at wes@business-impact.ca or text me at 587-832-5596. Awesome. Thank you very much. Any last words from you? No, man, I just really appreciate the opportunity to share my journey and my story with your audience. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much. For everybody else, remember to contact or get in touch with Wes. He has a lot of great stuff to share and a lot of great content as well. Get his book, sign up for some of his courses. And it's been a great time talking to you. Thank you very much for your time and your stories and your wisdom. It's been a lot of fun. And until next time, he is Wes. My name is Fong Chua. Until next time, today is the day to unlock your peak potential. I'll see you later.